This hour is brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington. Personal injury, criminal, business, whatever you need, Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on along and welcome aboard the Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary here on this Tuesday, January 21. Hope your day is going well. And if not, hopefully we can make it a little bit brighter. Jim Coyle with you as always. My running mate Todd Leary is here, of course. Jake's keeping us on the track, hopefully. No problems today. Lots to get to. So much to talk about. AP Top 25 poll came out. The Indiana women's basketball was in action last night. Men's are in action tomorrow night.
Thursday night.
Games. That's right. Thursday night. I was thinking that a minute ago. I was talking to myself and I had that conversation. And I made that same mistake then, and I made it again. NBA last night, just all kinds of stuff going on, man, to get to. On the program today, Chronic Hoosier, of course. It's a Chronic Tuesday. Wouldn't be without him. And, of course, we're hopefully going to have Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News as well. Todd Leary, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm great. It's weird we do have this much to talk about on a day that's not after a game or a game day.
It's crazy,
There's just
man.
a lot going on.
It is. Hey, and hit us up on the text line. Questions, comments, whatever you like. 812-269-6367. That's 812-269-6367. You can do it any time. We'll get to them, just like a couple fellas did yesterday. I always tell you I'll get to those, and I do that. Dennis from Chandler, Arizona said, I've noticed that Archie is keeping a couple of groups of players in a game together for longer periods of time during the last couple of games, and they play really good when he does. Archie is putting together a team which could be dangerous in the NCAA tournament. We've talked a lot about rotations and whatnot, and then here of late, Todd, we've seen a lot of changes in how that's going. How have you seen the changes and how they benefited Indiana?
I actually, from my opinion, I think it probably took a little longer than a lot of fans would have liked it to. I mean, but we talked about this way back in late November, early December, that once the Big Ten season started in full swing, that the mittens would tighten up a little bit. And at that point, they needed to tighten up a lot. I mean, playing 11 guys, there are not very many teams across the country that get away with playing 11 guys. And, this is a team that I don't think there's no need to play 11 guys. I mean, so far we're finishing the game and everybody seems fully rested. And that shouldn't be a thing. Like, I want guys to look tired at the end of a game. If we lose a game because guys are tired, they play too many minutes, but they're the right guys on the floor, then, we'll deal with that when the time happens. But right now, I mean, guys that are playing 21 minutes a game, even as much as 28 minutes a game, I mean, that's plenty of rest time, to be honest with you. And so, yeah, I get the point. I see what you're saying. It is tightening up quite a bit. You're seeing Demezie Anderson with, no minutes to very little minutes. You're seeing Duran with hardly any minutes. And that third guard position or fourth guard position has taken, it's taken a hit in minutes, whether it's been Al Durham or Armand Franklin. In the last few games, those guys have really, really balanced their minutes to where, one of them is sitting quite a bit more.
And yesterday, I think Alan sent a text in. I think Alan's from Birdseye. And, there it says right there. He said his comments yesterday about Rob, he should have clarified better. He thought he was talking about his shooting. He was really talking more about his ball handling and the standpoint of running the team as far as him being a little out of sorts. We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah,
he thought he's a little out of sorts, but he was thinking more as far as running the team, which – I didn't see that, but just what happens when you're driving and listening and thinking all at one time, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I hear you, Alan. I feel the same way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so that's what he was talking about, a comment that he made yesterday in regards to Rob Phinisee looking
and
a little
we've
out
talked,
of sorts.
yeah, and we've talked about Al, over the last little over a month or so that there's just been something. I don't even know how to identify what it's been, but there's been something a little bit weird about how he's played. And I get what what they're saying on the text line. I get it because we've all seen it, and he is looking a little bit more comfortable. I mean, ever since he made some of those shots, I was kind of using the shots that he made in Ohio State as the moment that propelled him into having more confidence and playing. Different things make guys feel better about their game, and I saw a difference in Rob. I saw his excitement level and everything go up in that Ohio State game, and so that's just why I was kind of comparing it to that.
Roger in Evansville points out IU was 4 of 6 from the 8 to 17-foot jumper range for 67%. We've talked a lot about this, Todd. That was against Nebraska. Maybe we should be looking for that shot instead of all the three-pointers, ? That's Roger in Evansville. Yeah, we've talked a lot about that.
Yeah, that's what we talked about in the Rutgers game. They didn't shoot one shot in between the three-point line and the lane. There were not one, not even missing any. They didn't shoot any. And that was a little bit of a difference in this game. And Joey Brunk, I think Trace Jackson Davis can do it as well. I know we've seen Justin Smith be able to do it, but that little 8 to 12-foot, runner or shot in the lane right there close to the free throw line or just under the free throw line is that extends the defense out so much and will allow for a high-low post feeds and all kinds of good things can happen out of that. So Joey Brunk really opened things up for Indiana. I think he made 3 of those in the Nebraska ball game. So just all of those little mid-range things I think will open up the inside so much. Right now teams are just keeping a foot in the lane to defend them.
Absolutely. I got a text there from Mike DeCourcy, so it distracted me. I had a question perfect lined up to you, and of course my ADHD brain lost the question. But what I was going to say is that Rutgers game when they weren't taking those shots. When you're in the middle of the game and you're in there playing and you're not doing those things, but the players, they don't notice that. They because each player's individual and they're not really paying attention to what shots the other guys are taking per se. So when that's going on and nobody's doing it, I don't think they really notice it. It has to come from the sideline, and that's where an adjustment has to be made in game, saying, guys, stop. We're not doing this instead of going forward.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, the coaching staff truly – so let's take a player like Cassius Winston, for example. I think when he was a freshman, that's probably what he was learning, and you saw a lot of Tom Izzo talking to him about how to improve on and pay attention to these kinds of things. It's almost like you have to keep your own running playbook in your mind as a point guard or as any guard, really. And that's what Rob Phinisee needs to be getting better at now. That's what Armaan Franklin needs to be learning right now. That's really the difference between high school basketball and college basketball for a guard, in that Rob Phinisee needs to know, like you and I watch the games. After a game is over, just because of how my brain has been trained to watch the game, I can tell you I could probably shot chart almost every shot that Justin Smith takes or Trace Jackson Davis takes or Armaan Franklin. Like I can go back in my mind, and if you ask me where those were, I could pinpoint real close to where they were and whether they made them or not. And that's just kind of what guards get trained to do. And that's what Rob Phinisee, that's part of his job. Now, there's a lot of times when, the coaching staff, when they call you over to talk to the coaches. So Coach Knight would call you over. It's always kind of funny because I like to ask people, like, what is it you think he's saying to us at that point? Because truly people have absolutely no idea what it is a coach is relaying to a player and things like that. And a lot of times it's reminding you of something that either you're like, oh my gosh, how did I not realize that? Of whether, hey, you know what, Trace Jackson Davis hasn't touched the ball for 4.5 minutes, or, we've gone 9 possessions in a row and Trace Jackson Davis hasn't taken a shot. Something like along those lines. I'm using those as examples, but that's the kind of information that they relay back and forth to you. And as a guard, you're either like, yeah, I know everything's just been going. We've been getting wide open shots or whatever. You make up an excuse if you know it or not. But that's what being part of a guard, learning to be a great guard. That's what Cassius Winston is so great at. I can assure you he can go down the floor and tell you how many times Xavier Tillman has taken shots and where he's taken them from and whether he's made them and how many fouls the guys guarding him's got and all that. Like that's just a lot of the information that has to go through. That's what the development of a guard does. And that's where Rob Phinisee, I think, is probably a little bit ahead of the average freshman that comes in.
That's a great point and a great way to lay that out. And that leads to the building of a great team. But you can't have that without that foundation that you just laid out.
If you don't, if no one on the court, I don't care if the coaching staff knows it or not. If every coach and everybody sitting on the sideline knows it, but no one out on the court is trying to process that information or have that information, you're never gonna be able to play well. You're never going to develop a team to the point where, they can play on their own and make adjustments, within game.
The value of a Trace Jackson Davis is devalued greatly without having that on the court.
Yep, without a doubt. I mean, that's when you see. So pay attention a lot of times to, take a coach like Fred Hoiberg or Tom Izzo. Take one of the great coaches or a coach that's coached in the NBA. It happens a lot in the NBA, where just watch what they do after they call a timeout. So if the other team's making a run or something's going on and they have to call a timeout, watch how many times the team scores coming out of that timeout. And that'll tell you a lot about a coach from a standpoint of, what kind of bench coach he is or what kind of in-game adjustment coach he is. Because when they call those timeouts, they're calling it really to kind of reset everything and get everybody back to where, hey, this was our game plan. This is what we were trying to do. Let's run this particular play. The ball's going to go here, 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 and then we're throwing it to Trace Jackson Davis. And that's what those kind of situations are for, and that's really where, that's when you see the development of a team overall. But it really starts with a guard, or if you can get two or three guys kind of understanding what's going on out there, you'll see guys really start to read each other and play well together.
Absolutely. Man, there's so much to get to today. Mike DeCourcy is on the show from the Sporting News, also from the BTN studios. You see him on during the games all the time. He's with us quite frequently. Great friend of the show. Chronic Hoosiers on the program today. We've got the new AP poll to talk about. There is a voter in the AP poll, Todd, that has currently 4 Big Ten teams on his poll ballot. None of them are named Michigan State, though.
Yeah, I mean that's somebody that is trying to get their name out for some goofy reason, because none of that makes any sense.
No, the only excuse you have is you were just a complete moron and forgot.
You forgot.
That's it. That is the only excuse, and I'll take that excuse. I'm like, okay, honest mistake. Other than that, it's like, what the hell's wrong with you, man?
Yeah,
they're a top 10 team, so yeah, it's weird. But and speaking of that, Rutgers ranked for the first time since 1979. It's your grandpa's Rutgers team, Todd.
Yeah, you've been saying that for a while. I agree with you. I mean, we'll find out this week. They've got to travel to Iowa this week. I mean, it may be a short-lived experience in the top 25, but their defense is good. Like I was a little bit skeptical of them. Still not 100% sold on them. I'm not sure they can score the ball well enough to really be a good team. They're good defensively, and they've got their guards pressure, they pressure the ball a ton, and that can really disrupt an offense. So, they're a decent team. But
we'll talk more about the poll later on. But also, just for giggles, how high did Michigan get? 4?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
And Ohio State, what, 3?
2.
Maybe 2? 2? Okay. You know what they're right now? Both? Nada! They're out!
Nowhere.
They're gone, man. It's crazy. Hey, we got tons coming up for you here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Lurie. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network joining us next. Stay tuned. We're back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios with all that and more right after this.
All night long. Do it, Robbie, do it.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Ryan Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is A.J. Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hi, this is A.J. Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary here on this Tuesday. Now joined by one of our absolute favorite guests, senior writer from the Sporting News and a veteran member of the BTN crew, Mike DeCourcy. Join us. Michael, how are you, man?
I'm great, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Todd Leary with us here, of course, as always, as well. Cold day, but, man, you've been a busy dude. You've been all over the place.
Yeah, they got me going. Absolutely.
Yeah, and right in the heart of the season, too. But that's great. This is why we do what we do. And I know you are the same. You love what you do. And what a year to be following a sport to where it is one of the craziest years we've seen, Mike.
I don't think that I've seen anything quite like this in my career. And I anticipated there being an absence of great teams because I understood the quality of player entering college basketball this year as freshmen to be much lower than usual. But I think what has impacted the game equally is the incredible volume of talent that exited. And not like you expect to lose the freshmen, the one and dones. I mean, you know those guys are going, and you expect to lose a significant number of upperclassmen who want to enter the draft and get selected. And that's something that college basketball has processed now for, the one and done rule came in 15 years ago, give or take, a little less than 15. So that and the other have been processed together for 14, 15 years. So we've come to expect that. What has happened in the last 2-3 years, especially last year, is the volume of players leaving college basketball to not get picked. There were 44 underclassmen who entered the draft last year and were not selected. And to my knowledge, I mean, I don't know whether they're disappointed that all worked out the way it did, but I think they've been encouraged, talked into, cajoled, maybe hoodwinked would be a word in some instances, into doing that because they're told, oh, they can get you a two-way contract and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know whether that's going to end up being the best route to a long-term NBA career. It's too early to know. But a lot of guys are taking that route, and it has had a noticeable impact on the level of college basketball that's played.
That's right up your alley, Todd.
Yeah, hey Mike, this is Todd. That's an incredible stat. I hadn't heard that before with the 44 players that left without being drafted. That's just incredible. But do you think at all, and I'm not trying to influence your opinion, I'm really trying to figure out if it does or not, but does the grad transfer portal, is that making things leveled out? It seems like there are so many different teams that have a guy that last year I watched him play at Virginia Tech, and now I'm watching him play at Florida or somewhere else. And it seems like that has leveled a lot of things out in my mind. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it certainly allowed teams to fill holes and has taken and created holes in other circumstances. But if you look at it, what's interesting in that particular circumstance that you mentioned, what's interesting about that is that it has had an impact to an extent on Virginia Tech, but they're still in the hunt. And
right.
Florida, which was supposed to be much better because of it, hasn't gotten much better at all. And maybe they will be now. They just really kicked the heck out of Auburn over the weekend, and so maybe they're getting it together. But for the first 2 months of the season, they weren't very good, and I think they could have been just as not very good without Blackshear as they have been with him. Now maybe that changes over the next 2 months. Good luck to the Gators on doing that, but it really didn't help them for a long period of time.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to figure out the long-term impact on this transfer portal, and I don't know if I like it or don't like it, but it just like right now I'm seeing so many different players. I know for Michigan State, I don't think he wasn't a grad transfer, so the Hauser kid from Marquette, I mean, he would have been a difference maker for this particular team at Michigan State, and the fact that Tom Izzo took such a hard stance when he was declared ineligible. There must have been more to that we didn't know. But this transfer thing is all of a sudden become a much bigger – it's as big an issue as recruiting is to me, and recruiting kids coming out of high school now, it appears like in a lot of these programs.
Oh, you have to be alert on which of your players might develop the level of satisfaction that would lead them to transfer, and as well as who is out there that would be on the market. If you're not aware of that, then you're not doing your job. And I think most of the coaches in the Big Ten are doing that. They're aware, and I think there has to be an understanding. If this guy decides to leave us, what will the impact be? And that impact could be in terms of your roster and your performance and that sort of thing. But it also could be an impact on your APR and what that might do to damage your program as well. I think there have been circumstances in college basketball where teams might have been better off if particular players were to leave, but the coaches couldn't afford to have them go because their APR circumstances weren't good.
Yeah.
That actually, there was a problem with that in Indiana during the changeover between Crean and Miller. I think that they're in the immediate turnover. Indiana was in danger of falling below that mark and being ruled ineligible for the tournament.
Boy, you jumped right on that there, Jim. You didn't miss. It wasn't a subtle hint.
Yeah, boom. Hey, man, nothing gets by me, Mike. But yeah, it's a different world. But the fans are benefiting because if this is the result, I want more of it because wow, this is like the NCAA tournament from November forward, which not used to that.
Yeah, I think that's really what makes it fascinating. I mean, I watched NC State play Virginia last night, and NC State won at Virginia for the first time in something like 15 years, and. Already, maybe I'm a little more tuned into it because I'm working on the brackets and projecting brackets for Fox now. But that was a game that had huge NCAA tournament implications, at least in my mind, because, I know that NC State is trying to get on the bracket. I think they might have made yesterday's. They maybe were just on the outside. Virginia, I know, has been in my first four bracketing part for probably the last 2-3 brackets since they dropped a couple of games. And so, you start to notice these things coming up. There's so many teams that feel like they have a shot now. And it's early, but there are a lot of teams out there that really believe that they can make it. And then there are a lot of teams as well, because of that balance, that don't feel secure at this stage of the season. I think that, I always say that the only such thing as a tournament lock is if you can lose all the rest of your games and still get in. And that's certainly never the case at this stage of a season. There are no, even undefeated San Diego State, if they lost all their games now, I think they'd end up almost 500. So people who talk about locks and that sort of thing usually do it too soon and usually apply it to the wrong circumstances. But I think just about everybody, short of the Dukes and maybe someone like Michigan State, feels a level of insecurity about where they might wind up.
Yeah, and speaking of teams like that, Mike, I think Indiana is a team that has kind of bounced back and forth between those, but they're trending upwards right now, and they have an opportunity this week with 2 home games against Michigan State and then Maryland to either make a move or just kind of stay in the middle.
To me, home games are not as much opportunities as obligations now in the current Big Ten. Now because of the level, especially when Michigan State comes into your gym, it's the one game that you feel like it's going to take an extraordinary effort to beat them just about anywhere. But when anybody else comes into your gym, it's like, you got to get it. I mean, if you don't, then you have to go out and win an equivalent road game. And winning an equivalent road game has been nearly impossible. I mean, we're talking about, so there have been 47 games so far that were played on the road. Obviously all games have a road and a home component, but 47 opportunities for teams to get road wins. There have only been 7 seized. 4 of those were at Nebraska and Northwestern. So that means there have only been among the tournament contenders, 3 equivalent road wins in all that opportunity. And that tells you something about how challenging it is to do that, and also shows you how much stronger, how much heavier that burden is now of making sure you take care of your stuff at home.
Absolutely. And then that puts the onus on you. You cannot lose a home game.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. And, and I said on Banner Monday yesterday, on their podcast that I appear on every week, I said that to an extent, every fan in the Big Ten now, especially of the contending teams, which is 85%, every fan now has kind of an obligation. I'm not saying that you have to show up; that's up to you. But if you're in the building, you're part of the show. I mean, you're like, it's like, just as you want Devontae Green to take good shots or Justin Smith to dive on the floor when there's a loose ball, it's your job to make it tough. And that's true whether, at Iowa and at Michigan and at Penn State, and every fan that goes has a role in this now, because you have to make it as tough for the opposing team as it is for your guys when they go on the road. And again, that's all, I'm talking about being, loud and having fun and all that, not about being mean and being, nasty or anything. I'm just talking about making it a hard place to play. And I will say that when I say that, I'm talking about doing it the right way, because Purdue does it. There's nothing foul or obscene or anything at Mackey. It's all clean. It's all just, loud and enjoyable, and it's as tough to play at Mackey as it is anywhere in America.
Hey, Mike, real quick. I know you've got to go, but I'd just like to get your opinion on the Baylor jumping Gonzaga this week in the poll for number 1. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll be honest with you. If there's anything about the college basketball season I loathe, it's the polls. I don't.
Good. You and me both.
I don't respect them. I honestly, and this is going to sound weird because of what I do for a living, but I almost never think about them, and I almost never check them. And I do think it's an interesting signpost for the curiosity of this season that you can say X number of number one teams have lost to unranked teams and that sort of thing. But if we went back and we used Ken Palm, say, over the last 20 years, it would be just as interesting and maybe more valid. I'm not a poll guy at all. I voted. This comes from having voted in the early 90s. And two things completely turned me off from it. One was, well, three things. One, they didn't pay you, and it was a lot of work. And I don't know why I should do work for the Associated Press if they're not going to pay me. Two was, I spent the latter part of, I think it was the 91 season. It might have been 90. When LaSalle was, maybe it was 90. LaSalle was like 25-1, 28-1, 20 whatever and 1. And nobody, I literally, for the entire period of probably second week of February until the tournament started, I was the only person voting LaSalle number one. They had 3 NBA players, including the player of the year, Lionel Simmons. But because they played in the conference they did, no one would vote for them. And I thought that was preposterous. That drove me crazy. And the third thing that turned me off for good was when they took the vote away from me, who, it's pretty clear that whether you think I'm any good at this or not, it's kind of my life. And they gave it to a guy who used to go around telling the coaches he was covering that he didn't know anything about basketball because it was his turn. So that was it. I was out, and I've been out for almost 30 years now.
Yeah, there's a notice Gary Parrish pointed out yesterday, and one of the voters has 4 Big Ten teams in. None of them are named Michigan State. So, yeah.
That's tremendous. That's
awesome.
Great. That's the best.
Mike, I cannot thank you enough, man. We love having you on. You're one of our absolute favorite guests, and we so appreciate you taking the time to visit with us.
Hey, guys, it's always a pleasure. You're the best, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks you buddy. So much. There's Mike DeCourcy, senior writer for the Sporting News, from BTN, from Fox. He's ubiquitous, and he's a great friend of the show. We appreciate it. Love his opinions. He's been around for a long, long time, covering college basketball, and that's what he does, man. Always enjoy talking to him. I love getting his perspective because it's always different than ours, mine, yours. It's different, and we need that to keep this thing flowing. And I love getting those different perspectives and hearing how people view things from outside.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those people that you just can always tell he's done his research. He's always knowledgeable about so many different situations, and sometimes those guys will overanalyze goofy stats that sometimes I don't think really they get too analytical. But he's not one of those people. He generally comes up with a stat like that: 44 players leaving college basketball and not being drafted. That's some information I didn't know, and he always comes up with something that's interesting and I do think is impactful on the game.
And you'd think that those numbers, that's a lot. 44.
That's crazy.
44. You would think that would resonate with these kids, but man, sometimes it just seems like you see that guy, you're like, what the hell is he thinking?
Dude, I'm telling you, it's always the same scenario. It's like I tell you, when people talk about will a recruit go here because they had a bad game or whatever. Guys always think they're the solution. They always think, okay, yeah, well, I see that didn't. I mean, a good example of that is Chris Wilkes from Indianapolis, who went out to UCLA. I mean, that guy.
Where is he now?
He left school last year and didn't get drafted.
I mean, is he in Europe now?
I don't even know. I'm not sure. I mean, but he's a perfect example. I mean, he was the same year. I followed those kids because they were 1 year above us in AAU, and so we traveled together, and we just knew a lot about that team. And he played for the Indy Hoosiers out of Indianapolis, and he's a kid that. I think he was probably just listening to the wrong people. He has a great family. He's got a great family. He's got good people around him. He's
from Indiana, and the people that brought him to UCLA, Ed Schilling, who former IU assistant, but was a UCLA assistant who recruited him out to UCLA, and then Steve Alford, of course. Also, both those guys leave, so I don't want to say he felt abandoned, but I'm sure that a kid from Indiana, way out in Los Angeles, at UCLA, and then all those guys leave, that's got to be a huge impact on you.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. That's one thing where I don't know how the rules could be changed. I don't know how they could be different, but when there's a coaching change and any kind of regime change, I'm not even talking about the head coach. I'm talking about any coaching change within a program, people that were recruited, and I don't care if they have to figure out a way to identify what kids were recruited by what coaches or how, if they've got to be predetermined. I mean, you should have the opportunity to be able to leave. You select a school for a bunch of different reasons. I mean, when Bob Knight was at Indiana, I mean, that's kind of the anomaly. I mean, that's kind of the one situation, like a lot of people will choose Duke because of Mike Krzyzewski. They'll choose Kentucky because of John Calipari. That's not always the case at a lot of other places. I mean, a lot of other places, there's an assistant like Ed Schilling that is going to be a part of the program and he's going to be a part of your development. When coaches recruit, they talk about this coach is great at developing guys in this category. And then that guy leaves and gets a head coaching job somewhere. And as a player, you're stuck there. Man, I've got a problem with that. I don't think that's right. I don't think that that's the way it should be. I think those players should have more ability to be able to leave and transfer and go somewhere else.
It's getting closer to that as we get there. Dr. J hit us up on the text line earlier. We were talking about Rutgers. He said Rutgers plays uglier than us. They are not fun to watch, and their ranking won't last.
Yeah, I think he's right about the ranking won't last. I mean, first of all, the end part of their schedule is difficult also. But, I mean, they've got to go to Iowa tomorrow night. If they win at Iowa, we'll all sit here and agree they should be ranked. But I don't think that'll happen.
Go get your teeth cleaned at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
You
there you go. Hey, we've got lots more coming up here on the program from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Chronic Hoosiers going to be on yet? We got plenty more to talk about. We haven't talked about Conor McGregor, that UFC match over the weekend.
Because it only lasted we'll give ourselves 40 seconds.
40 seconds to talk about it. Perfect. When we come back, 40 seconds on the UFC. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Larry. We're back right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 3 years. Let Dr. Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
This is former IU basketball player Derek Elson. Follow the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now it's all out and you know, 'cause I want it to.
Wow, welcome back. Rocking it out here on Indiana Sports Beat. Coyle O'Leary with you. Jake's rocking the speakers out this morning. That'll wake you up. Roger's woken up. He hit us up on the text line. You can do the same, 812-269-6367 down in Evansville. He said, I assume the students will be at Assembly Hall for the Michigan State game. They were not for Ohio State, and the house was rocking. Should be a great atmosphere now that the students are back. Yeah, it's a unique deal there. When the students aren't there, it's still good because if there's a good crowd in there, that means there's a lot of people who don't get to go to IU games, Todd. So that's a different kind of a crowd, but usually also a good one.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, it's a different kind of just a little bit different atmosphere. Not incredibly noticeable, but the students just bring on, a little crazier atmosphere. It's just a little bit more. It's a little bit louder. It's louder at different times. I think when there's alley-oop dunks and a lot of cheering and big made threes and stuff going on, it's probably about the same. But students just kind of hold the loud meter up a little bit during the whole game, and they can bring you back from a situation of, if another team goes on a run, that's when the student crowd can really be a factor in the game.
Unending energy, baby. They're 18, 19 years old. They got unending energy.
For sure.
Bill hit us up on the text line and said, yes, MSU is leading the Big Ten, but they have played, and I remember seeing this yesterday, but they have played 5 of their 7 games at home so far, more than anyone else, with a road win at Northwestern, who was most likely the best place to get a road win. IU is 4-3 with 4 road games played on top of the top 7 teams that are 4-3 or better. 3 teams have played 4 road games, IU, Iowa, and Wisconsin. I think that there's some truth to that. 5 out of 7 at home, that helps you out a lot because we've seen, they went down to Purdue and just got handled. But there's no guarantees. You still got to play your game, but obviously in the Big Ten right now, playing at home is an advantage.
Yeah, it is. And another advantage, I'm not making excuses or saying that this would be any different, but they're early, you play the 2 games early in December or mid-December that are Big Ten games. And the games that Michigan State, you play 1 at home and 1 on the road. And the games that Michigan State had at that point were Rutgers at home, and then they had to go to Northwestern. So they got to start the year out 2-0. And if you remember, they were the only team that started the year out 2-0. Every other team had a loss, which most likely it was that road game. So they were the beneficiary of a decent schedule to start in that early part of the year. Their road game was at Northwestern, which is one of the 2 you probably are expected to win. So that did get them off to a good start, but that doesn't take away from the fact of they probably still are the best team. They've got one of the best players in the country, if not the best. And they've got one of the best coaches in the country. So, they should be where they are. However, they are definitely the beneficiary of an easier schedule to start at this point.
Yeah, and we'll see how that comes around because we've talked about Indiana. Indiana does not have – there's no chance for them to have a bad loss the rest of the year just because of their schedule. So that's a great thing to know.
Yeah, Indiana has – there's a few games when you just lump them together and you look at what Mike DeCourcy was talking about, and you almost, he almost doesn't look at home wins as opportunity. He looks at them as their mandatory wins. Yeah, I mean, Indiana has their home games are Michigan State, Maryland, Purdue, Iowa, Penn State, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Yeah, I mean, truly, unless Iowa shot the ball unbelievably, this Michigan State and Maryland games, Indiana should beat Maryland pretty easily, to be honest with you. Michigan State's the toughie out of all those, and that's the one game I can see on there, that's one that they could lose. And if they lost it, you could lose that one and not feel like you were losing that much ground on the whole field, because Michigan State will go into several places and win.
Right. And that's going to happen in a lot of places. And you have to expect that going in, it's like a 50-50 ball.
Yeah, they've just got that. Tough. They've got that veteran guard that's the best player on their team, and they're well coached. I mean, that's that. If you want to draw up if you tell a program, hey,
that's a foundation.
What do you need to go on the road and win? You need a really good guard, and you need a good coach. And those are the two things you would start with. You need a lot of other things as well, but I mean, those are the two things you would start with, and they've definitely got it.
The IU women were in action last night at the Simon Scott, they were on the road at Maryland, my fault, number 20 Maryland, and unfortunately for the third consecutive time, they lost. First this season, they had not lost 2 in a row. Before this little streak they're on. They lost 76-62. Number 20 Maryland. This was not an upset. It's on the road at one of the top teams in the country. The game before they lost, it's the Northwestern at home. That was the one that really stuck them, but hopefully they get things back going. Grace Berger had 21 points. Allie Patberg had 15 points and 6 assists, but they come up on the losing end, so hopefully they can get that turned around. The men's wrestling team was in action against Purdue last night, Todd. They lost to Purdue 23-9, but Coach Angel Escobedo, former national champion for the Hoosiers, he's now their coach. Hopefully he can get that turned around as well. D2 Indy. I know you know those guys, man. The Greyhounds, they went down to Louisville last night and beat number 1 Bellarmine in the Division II ranks.
Wow. Yeah, that program has always been underrated in my opinion, but it's just they've always had some really, really good players that, probably should have gotten from the Indianapolis area or from the Indiana area that should have gotten, looks at some bigger schools, and for whatever reason they didn't. And those guys have always kind of played with a chip on their shoulder, and they've always been good, and they're well coached. That's a good program. You want to watch good basketball, you go watch UIndy. They're good.
D2 period. I mean, watch UIndy, Southern Indiana, Bellarmine. Those 3 teams right there, and this little triangle, Bellarmine and Louisville, Southern Indiana and Evansville, and then, of course, UIndy and Indy. All 3 of those teams, they're great. What makes them so fun is they're usually full of players from, like, Bellarmine has got guys from the Louisville area, from the Southern Indiana area, then, of course, UIndy, and then Evansville, Southern Indiana. There's always a mix of Indiana players on these teams. And Bellarmine won a national championship a couple years ago. All 3 of these teams are tops in Division II, and it's fun basketball to watch.
Yeah, and they're all working hard. Mostly they're working to try to get themselves in a position to move up to Division I. I mean, I know USI down in Evansville. I know they've been working on it for years, and it won't surprise me a bit if in the next couple of years you see them enter the Division I ranks. And I think the same thing could be said for UIndy and Bellarmine.
Well, Bellarmine is moving up to Division I. Funny you say that. They are heading in that direction. But then the players on these teams, Todd, where we watch college basketball, all these guys, their goal is to get to the league. Well, I know that these guys would like to play in the league. I don't think that's the most of their goals. They know they're heading to Europe or someplace like that. But that's fine with them because this is – that is the NBA to them, just like Division II is Division I to them. But that's what they're looking forward to. But they're still great players, and it's just fun basketball.
It is, and it's always fun to watch good, talented players that have a chip on their shoulder and have something to prove. It's fun to watch them get out on the court and battle. And that, to be honest with you, that's why it seems like they play harder a lot of times than you see in some of the big Division I schools.
Last night in the NBA, the Utah Jazz thumped the Pacers. I mean, thumped them 118-88. Spider Mitchell, 25 points. Your man Jawan Morgan got in. He got some minutes. He didn't score, but he got 4 minutes in the win. as Utah beats Indianapolis 118-88. And then the Celtics destroy the Lakers 139-107. It was the biggest win by either over the other in over 50 years, Todd, in a series that goes way back. But, man, Romeo got in. He got some mop-up minutes, 5 minutes, 4 points. But that's a huge win.
Yeah, I mean, that some things are just unexplainable when it comes to margin of victory, and I don't even think it could be possible that you could put an all-star team together and beat LeBron James and Anthony Davis by that many points, but somehow they did it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Then there's the story of Delonte West, who is a former NBA player. I think he played for the Cavs. I forget where he went to college, but I know Phil Martelli's one of the coaches.
St. Joseph's.
There you go. Then that explains why Phil Martelli, I've seen so much of him, the former St. Joseph coach. Apparently, Delonte West is suffering a mental health issue right now. I saw there was a video out yesterday. It's sad. He was getting beat up in the middle of a road. Just
awful, yeah.
It was tough to watch for me. And I'm like, I can watch about anything. I'm like, wow, that was rough. So you see all these people feeling sorry for him. Hopefully somebody reaches out and grabs him instead of just saying, hey, I hope somebody reaches out and physically does something. But you hate to see that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, it's awful. And that's when that's when mental health is it can be a disease, and you can have problems, and everybody, I've kind of learned that a long time ago, that everybody's dealing with stuff, and you never want to take anything for granted. And even though looks like from the outside, he lived a great life and playing in the NBA and having a great college career and making a bunch of money, that's not what it's all about at the end of the day. And man, it's just sad to see that situation happen. And you're right. I hope somebody is able to, mentor him into a situation where they can get him to get some help and get things figured out. Because, man, that was a sad video.
Yep, it sure was. We talked about the AP poll, top 25 poll that came out yesterday, and Baylor overtaking Gonzaga, which the funny thing is, I've said, we've talked about this, and I said, well, Gonzaga is going to be number one forever because they're not going to move.
Right.
And there's been so many years where this was the case, and I'm thinking, dude, they should be ahead of them. They should be ahead of them. And I probably would have thought that here, but just not yet. I hadn't gotten there yet. I knew it was coming, but I'm like, okay. And you talked about why now, and I agree with you. I get that. I'm like, well, wasn't expecting it now. There just wasn't the reason. If they beat like Duke or something, yeah, okay, I get it. But
right.
They didn't.
I intentionally watched.
And as a matter of fact, not to cut you off, they scraped by Oklahoma 61-57
and trailed the whole game. That's what I was saying. I intentionally watched Baylor play this weekend because they had moved way up in the rankings, and I wanted to see, how good they were. And believe me, I think they're scary good. Defensively, they are scary good. So that part of it made me believe, okay, yeah, they deserve to be up there. And I even had thought to myself, there's a time throughout this season, there'll be a week when Gonzaga doesn't play anybody and Baylor has a win or two good wins that week, and they'll have an opportunity, the committee will, to bump them up over Gonzaga. And like you just said, this just wasn't the week. Gonzaga had two pretty good games against two teams that will most likely be in the NCAA tournament, and they won by a combined 75 plus points. They beat a team that was 15-3 by 50 points. And they won their other game by 29 points or something like that. And so you're just like, of all the, BYU is a good team. I think everyone would tell you, if you watch BYU play, that's not a team everybody wants to play on a regular basis if you're trying to get a win. And Gonzaga won by almost 30 points in that game. And that's the week they choose to bump Baylor above Gonzaga. I'm all for that opportunity being there for them to move teams around, even though both teams could win throughout a week. This just wasn't the week to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I was just a little surprised, but I'm like, screw it. Let it happen, because there's no way Baylor's not going to not get beat, because at some point they have to play Kansas. It's just going to work out the way it is. But ironically now, Baylor becomes the 7th number one team of the season, which ties a record
I
from
feel like that had something to do with it.
1983. And so now when they do name Gonzaga number one, that's going to set a new record. We still got 2 months left. I don't know that Gonzaga will go the rest of the season. They might after they bump Baylor past them and then Baylor loses, which they will lose.
I mean, Baylor's got to go to Florida this week. I mean, Florida has been a team that's not played all that well.
Yeah, they've been up and down.
But the last week they played great. I mean, they beat Auburn by 20, and Auburn was undefeated. But I mean, Baylor's got to go to Florida this week. They go to Iowa State next week. They've got some tough games. They've still got to play West Virginia a couple times. They've got Texas Tech. They've still got some tough games. I really feel like this was their opportunity to bump Baylor up because I think they know their schedule is going to be such that, they'll lose some games and get bumped back down. But Baylor is scary good. I mean, defensively, they're good. They've got guys that can knock down shots. They're deserving of being up there in that 1, 2, 3. And quite frankly, as long as you're a number one seed at the end of the year, so as long as you're in that top 4, it doesn't really matter where you're at. I mean, the coaching staff, a place like Baylor probably looks at it more than a place like even Gonzaga now, because they have been in the last few years, but even more than a place like Indiana or Duke or Louisville or somewhere like that, who's been number one so many different times in their history. It's not near. You don't look at it near as much as as the average fan is going to look at it. Fans like that more than the players and coaches do.
Absolutely. All right, so we said we're going to allow ourselves 40 seconds, and I've done.
Yep.
We've got down to the last minute. Over the weekend, Conor McGregor, the big UFC fight. I was able to get back after the game. I raced back, and we. Of course, didn't need to. There was.
I was going to say,
there was 3 fights to go on.
I drove 2 hours and got home in time for it.
Yeah, there's 3 more fights in between, which the card was sucked. Anyway, so it comes out, and we're expecting all this, and then boom, 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 and it's over.
Yeah, I mean, it was your introduction to how long we're going to talk about it is probably longer than how long we're going to talk about it and how long it lasted, because it was. I mean, that kick to the face. I mean, that was the end of it. Once that happened, it was over.
Yeah, I'm kind of bastardizing something Mike Tyson said, but I love it. Everybody's got a plan. You get kicked in the face.
Right.
Except he said punch in the face. But, man, we got so much more to get going on today. It's great. We already had Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Fox, and the BTN on. Chronic Hoosiers coming up in the next hour. We got plenty more to talk about to get to all that, so I can't wait. Looking forward to it. We're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. It's Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary, and we're back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Rain Shaddy, with FC Tucker Big Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hey, it's Michael Lewis, former Indiana University player and current UCLA assistant basketball coach, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary. Tuesday, January 21st. We're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, of course, in Bloomington. Hey, don't forget that Thursday night, of course, Indiana takes on the Michigan State Spartans at the Simon Scott Assembly Hall. But more importantly, after the game of Todd Leary happens afterwards, coming to you live from Yogi's.
I like the more importantly part.
That's right. That's that 8:30 tip. Is that what you told me?
It is.
Oh, my. That's not right, man.
I know. 8:30 Eastern.
That means we'll be on around 10:30. We don't care because the fans love it, and they're always there, and we love it. We love you guys. We appreciate you so much. Tim texts in and says, you should get Dane Fife on. Well, funny you say that, Tim, because Dane's going to be on with us Thursday, former Indiana player and current Michigan State assistant coach, potentially heir apparent to Tom Izzo. I mean, do you think that's the case? I mean, most people do. That he's the heir apparent to Tom Izzo. He's been there, 9 years now?
Yeah, I just don't think – I think Dane will have too many opportunities prior to that being the case. I mean, I don't see Tom Izzo leaving in the next, 5, 6, 7 years. Do you?
How old is he? I don't know how old he is.
Yeah, I don't either.
But, I mean, I can see him doing it another 5 years because he seems like he enjoys it and – he's still successful. I mean, he had a number one team this year, but what'd you say, Jake?
Yeah, he's 64. Oh. He's coached until he's 70 at least.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
So there's Dane may be the next coach there, but he'll be a coach somewhere else, in my opinion, before he's back at Michigan State. And they've got so many. I mean, heck, one of the guys that's an assistant there has been an assistant for 20 years. Stevens, what's his name? Dwayne Stevens. He's been an assistant there for literally 19, 20 years.
Now, that's definitely not somebody who's going to be the head coach, I wouldn't think.
Probably not. You wouldn't think so. But, I mean, Dane will have – I have truly been surprised that Dane hasn't – every year when jobs open up, I always think that Dane will be one of those guys that's mentioned for that job. I'm surprised. And to your point, he may be being groomed for that job because there's been several openings in the last few years that Dane would have been perfect for. And he's going to be a great coach.
There's no way that he hasn't had the opportunity if he wanted to take it. It's kind of like the Jeff Capel situation, though, at Duke. He was under Mike Krzyzewski for a long time, and I thought, and a lot of people thought, that he's just going to stay there and wait till Krzyzewski leaves when he's 2,000 years old. And now, though, he's off to where? Pittsburgh, I think. He's the coach at Pitt. So maybe getting himself some head coaching experience. Dane already has that a little bit. He was at IU Fort Wayne. I don't know if he was anywhere else as a head coach. I can't remember, but But yeah, it's certainly interesting how the coaching tree lays out. Sometimes you got guys that are boom, boom, boom when they're young. Then you got guys like Dane who are, I mean, where else? Where could he learn more? I mean, he's under Tom Izzo.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. That's the thing with coaching is there's not one set, way to go that makes it happen. I mean, it's just kind of every player takes their own route. I mean, Jeff Capel was a coach. He was a head coach at VCU. He was a head coach at Oklahoma. That whole situation didn't work out. He took over for dingbat Kelvin Sampson when he left Oklahoma. And that whole scenario was kind of a train wreck. And then he went back to Duke for several years as an assistant, and then now he's at Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I mean, that Jeff Capel situation has I thought you're right. I thought he was going to be that. Then I thought Wojo was going to be the guy that hung around there forever. I thought Chris Collins. I thought all those guys would kind of be the heir apparent to that. But think about that. It's like Indiana. Is the fan base going to be okay with having somebody like that, or are they going to want to go out and hire the absolute best person there is, across the country? I think Coach K will have a big say in who follows him there.
I would imagine. Tebow points out that Tom Izzo was an assistant for 12 years at Michigan State before becoming a head coach.
Yeah, he was. And that was, Dane Fife and Tom Izzo have a very similar, history in the way that they have been at a program for a while. And he's set up to take that job. If he chooses for that to be, the job that he wants, I certainly think that he would get that job if he stays there for another 5 or 6 years. We're assuming Tom Izzo is going to stay till he's 70. He may stay till he's 75. He may retire next year. It's hard to tell. But Dane is set up, I think, in a position to where they would love to have him as the next coach there. I'm just not sure timing wise it's all going to work out.
Yeah, that's another thing. Timing is as big as anything, any equation you can throw into it. Timing means a lot. It's just weird how things sometimes work out where, a lot of people have talked that, like Archie Miller, how Ohio State was kind of the job that he would like to have had. And then Indiana comes open, and then right after that, Ohio State job.
Months after that, in a weird time of the year, Thad Matta leaves Ohio State. I mean, that whole scenario was just bizarre how that whole thing happened. And, that's exactly what it is. I mean, there's a lot of things that would be different right now had Thad Matta left a little earlier. And you can analyze those to death. We'll never be able to tell. We'll never know. But, I mean, from all the way down from Indiana's head coach to what its assistant coaches are, might be a lot different.
The funny thing is, and I'm not advocating for this in any way, just funny how I think if things hadn't happened time-wise the way they did, it could very well be Archie Miller at Ohio State and Chris Holtman in Indiana.
Could be. It very easily could have been.
And like I said, I'm just pointing out the irony of it all. It's just funny how that stuff works out. A couple of Big Ten games on the ledger tonight, man. I think Purdue plays what? Who are they playing? Illinois. Yeah, Illinois. Purdue. There's a game. Now there's a game of teams that are about the same level. These guys are both fighting for that lower mid portion of the Big Ten. Illinois trying to fight up a higher. Obviously, they're sitting second, third right now.
Yeah, I mean they're up there in the Illinois at 5-2 right now, so they're tied for second in the league.
This on paper, this is a pretty good matchup as far as matchup wise.
It's a big game. It's a big game from the standpoint of right now Illinois has done something that it's one of those 3 wins Mike DeCourcy was talking about. They went to Wisconsin and won, and that's a good win for them. Otherwise, their wins, they've already played. They've already played Purdue once. I mean, they beat Purdue by they're the team that held Purdue to 37 points. So this is a game that Purdue's trying to flip it back around and play back at home, turn the game back around. I mean, they lost by 26 points at Illinois, but game wise, Illinois they've beaten Michigan. They lost at Maryland. This was the first game of the year. I think you'll remember this. This is the first game of the year. They had a huge lead against Maryland, and Maryland came back and hit a shot right at the end of the game to beat them at Maryland. Otherwise, Illinois would be sitting in an unbelievable position right now. But they got a big win at Wisconsin. You know, their other wins are not that great. I mean, they beat Rutgers at home. They beat Northwestern at home. Barely by both of them. I mean, combined in those two games, they won by 7 points combined against Rutgers and Northwestern at their Assembly Hall. So, you know, it's just weird how the whole thing has worked out. But this is a gigantic game. They've actually got a really big week for Illinois right now. They play at Purdue and at Michigan this week. And if everything holds to form the way it's been, and, you know, Purdue wins at home and Michigan wins at home, you know, I mean, Illinois will be, you know, they'll be sitting right there in the middle of the pack with everybody else. And they've played better than Purdue up to this point. But we all know how difficult it is to go in there and to Mackey Arena and win.
Well, the closest Indiana is going to get to playing in Rupp Arena right now is Tom Crean in Georgia there tonight, 7 o'clock. Bulldogs, the Wildcats. Kentucky currently ranked 15th. They're 13-4. Georgia's 11-6. But Georgia's is a one-man show.
Yep, they sure are. He's a good one man. He's really good. And when he shoots well, he could dominate a game by himself. But Kentucky, you know, the one thing with Kentucky that you can kind of say they're better at than normal is their defense. And they're pretty good defensively. And I'm not sure a one-trick pony can go in there and win because they're pretty good defensively.
Illinois, currently ranked 21st, is a 5.5-point underdog at Purdue, Todd.
Yeah, that's that just tells you all by itself how crazy the league is and how weird, you know, all of these games are. And I mean, Illinois won this game at home by 26. They've done nothing.
And I would not be shocked if Purdue wins by 26.
I won't. Well, 26 would be crazy. But I agree with you. I mean, I would not be shocked to see them win this game at all.
Only because of what I saw them do to Michigan State there. Able to when you can't score points, you're going to beat the crap. When the other team can't score points, you're liable to beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, I mean it'll be an interesting. You got Maryland at Northwestern also.
Yeah, that's another game. Maryland is a 7.5. Now this to me, this is a dangerous game for Maryland. Northwestern, obviously, the doormat, but there's been some games that have been close. They're only a 7.5-point favorite here. That's not a lot of points to me over a team that on paper should be dominated. 7.5 points is not a lot.
I'm telling you, people are not sold. You know, remember at one point in time, Maryland was ranked, I think, 5th in the country. I mean, they were way, way up there. And I think everybody's watched them play a few times. Maryland is not a good scoring team. And when Anthony Cowan is not making shots, you know, they're really not that good, to be honest with you. I mean, I hate to say it that way because they'll probably come to Assembly Hall and shoot 70% from the three-point line. But you know, if you remember that game with Indiana, I mean, Indiana had not played well at all. And with 14 minutes to go in the game, Indiana was only down 3. Now, we all know what happened from that point on. They went down 30 in the next 7 minutes, which is almost impossible to do. But this is a game, I'm telling you right now, if Northwestern wins this game, it will not surprise me in the slightest. They're a good shooting team. They're playing at home. They can play that goofy zone, which can really frustrate Maryland if they're not making shots. Won't surprise me a bit to see Northwestern win that game.
Game of the night, not in the Big Ten, but just game of the night. Butler, number 13 Butler, who was just in the top 5, at number 9 Villanova. Villanova's a 3.5-point favorite on that one. That should be a good game. Butler's not been playing well.
Yeah, Butler's lost 2 in a row, and you know, Butler to me, I mean, them and Villanova are very, very similar, and Butler is really good. Like I'm telling you, I know they've lost 2 in a row. They lost a 10-point lead to Seton Hall at home, which really surprised me. Butler is a very, very good team. They're good defensively. They've got guys that can knock down shots. They've got some big guys that can defend. They've got some young guys that can play. Like Butler is good, and this will be a tough game for Villanova. Villanova started the year out not great, but they have played better as of late. I mean, but they're guard heavy also. You're right. That will be the game of the night.
And there's another, actually, this should be another good game. Texas Tech, who's been playing well of late, number 18th or ranked 18th. They're down at TCU. They're only a 3.5-point favorite there.
Yeah, I mean, if Indiana fans are tired and Indiana's not playing and they want to watch some old school kind of Indiana basketball, go watch Texas Tech, because they run the motion offense. Probably about as close to you're going to see it in today's college basketball world.
Defensively, they're similar.
Defensively, they're very similar. I mean, Chris Beard, I think he would outwardly say that he's kind of trying to take over Coach Knight's, a lot of the philosophies Coach Knight had. And you saw what it's done for him in the last 2 years. I mean, I think they've been to the Elite Eight and the Final Four in the last 2 years, and we're 30 seconds away from winning a national championship last year. That's why I've kind of said it. It's cyclical. You see offenses and defenses and stuff work in college basketball, and they go through cycles. And right now, everything is in that pro-style offense where you see a lot of ball screens and a lot of big guys up at the top of the key and a lot of weave and a lot of motion, that kind of motion going on. It's gotten away from the old school, Bob Knight style motion offense. And I think eventually once teams figure that out, once teams figure out how to defend that, you'll start to see things flip-flop back. I've been saying this for a month now. You'll see things flip-flop back and start to go more towards, a true motion offense where guys can read the defense and make their cuts accordingly and set screens accordingly and things like that. I think we'll start to see more of that. But you want to watch some good motion offense, watch Texas Tech play. They're fun to watch.
One other game in the Big Ten tonight, Todd, the Cornhuskers, Fred Hoiberg and the Nebraska Cornhuskers travel to Wisconsin. They are a 15.5-point underdog there.
Oh, my gosh. What?
15.5. Against a team that scores, 55 points a game?
That's shocking.
It's shocking to me when you see that. What's shocking to me is Wisconsin's they don't score a ton of points. So
right.
To have that
Wisconsin
kind of a spread,
struggles to score when they're making. We remember them from when they played Indiana, and everybody on the floor that came in knocked in a three.
Yeah,
but they're not that kind of team. I mean, they're a team that struggles to score the ball. If you told me Nebraska was a 15.5-point dog to Michigan State, I would still be kind of surprised, let alone Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's a big numbers. But anyway, we'll see how that turns out. But
I'll make that my play of the day for you there, Jimbo.
There you go. So if you want to put one down,
15.5?
15.5 on the road up in cheese country.
Wow.
Man, we got a lot more to go yet before we wrap it up today. The Chronic Hoosier is going to join us next because it is a Chronic Tuesday. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. We're back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is A.J. Moye.
This is Dan Dawkins.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hi, this is A.J. Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
All my friends know the low rider.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle O'Leary here on this Tuesday, January 21st. Man, I cannot believe that it's flying along. Chronic Hoosier. It wouldn't be Chronic Tuesday without him. How are you, sir?
I am doing well, my friend.
Yeah, it's been a pretty mild January, so I'm not going to complain about the weather, although I wish that it was a little bit warmer out there.
Yeah, it's you and me both. We kind of got ruined by that warm spell we had. This is that time of the year where I'm reminded just how thin my southern skin is right now. But we're dealing, we're managing. It's I tell you what, though, it's hard to mistake. You step outside. We are in the heart of basketball season right now, when the air burns your face and the gym feels like a sauna when you first step inside of it. So it's good to have those feelings come back.
Talking about that yesterday, Chronic, with Todd, that it's basketball season now. Football is over. College football is over. The NFL is over. You got the Super Bowl left, but it's basically over. So now it is all straight up college basketball time.
I'll tell you what, man, this is actually one of the I love it every single day. You get up, you go outside and get on with your business. I'm reminded the lessons taught to me by my fourth grade coach, Greg Prangy. We would have to run suicides if he ever caught us outside without a hat on, because in his estimation, it was an extremely selfish move to run the risk of illness in the middle of the season. So if you want to be a good teammate, you got to take good care of yourself. And here I am, Lord knows how many decades down the road, and those words still ring true every day. So credit to the coaches and the impact they have on our lives far beyond the court, because I got my hat on right now as we speak.
That's a good dude. Well, speaking of coaches, Indiana's women's team has had such a great season, but they've hit a little bit of a skid, Chronic. They've lost 3 straight.
Yeah, it's turned into a rough patch for Coach Morin's crew here. They started off, they were playing in Iowa, a gym they have not won in several decades, pretty much in control for most of the game, but Iowa nursing the nation's second longest home winning streak in women's. They found a way to battle back, forced it into overtime, ended up going double OT before Indiana lost down at the wire. And unfortunately, that kind of repeated itself again back at Assembly Hall, and then kind of snowballed into what really wasn't that competitive of a game last night. I think the final margin was around 20 points. So they've got to find their legs, got to find a way to get back to winning basketball. And more than anything, they've got to find a way to get that defense reset, because that's as great as this offense is, as many weapons as they have. Kind of like the men's team, with these women, defense is going to be what stirs the drink, what sets everything up. And that's something that they've got to find a way to get back in place, because they've still got a ton of potential in front of them. Slid a little bit in the polls yesterday. I suspect you'll see a continued slide. Shouldn't drop out of the top 25, but they certainly got to right the ship here as they get into the heart of the Big Ten season.
Yeah, they've got a great shot at fighting for a Big Ten title, so I'm sure that they'll get that back together. But yeah, it's been a great season. So at least they hadn't had any dips at all before. I mean, even their losses were to good teams. They lost to Baylor. So and yet South Carolina, who's number 1 in the country right now, their only loss is to Indiana.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no doubt this team has a boatload of potential. And as we were kind of talking briefly before we went on here, I think one of the biggest challenges when you find this much success this early is maintaining that competitive fire. And I don't think it's for lack of that, but I think they got to get back to what it was that got them there to begin with. And it's going to start with defense, and it's going to extend into sharing the ball, making the extra pass, and just being really, really aggressive on both ends of the floor. So if I know Coach Morin, she's got more than enough tools in her bag right now to reignite that flame and get the girls back on track. But it's one of the challenges when you have that success early is how do you keep that fire burning on high? And I have a feeling you're going to see just how good she is here and the way she gets this team to respond, because I don't suspect they're going to be content to watch all this promise and potential just go out by the wayside.
I agree. On the other side of the ledger, the men's side, they're back in action on Thursday night as the top team in the conference, the Michigan State Spartans, and Tom Izzo come to town. Opportunity right there, Chronic, for Indiana to really step forward. They've kind of really taken that next step with their play of late, but it's time to take that next step forward if they're going to be in the top ledger of the Big Ten.
I'll tell you what, this is a Big Ten season probably unlike anything I've ever seen, just with the number of teams that have a chance to win on any given night. Obviously, there's been a lot made about the difficulty of winning on the road in this league so far this year. So as much as I saw a lot of people trying to discount the significance of IU's win in Lincoln, I don't know that you can overstate how important it is to steal road wins wherever you can get them, whether it be at Nebraska, or the top of the conference for that matter. But speaking of which, you've got the top team in the league coming in here this Thursday. And one thing we've seen since Archie Miller came to Bloomington, you usually get his season's masterpiece against Izzo. He always seems to bring his best whenever he's squared up with the Spartans. It's going to be an absolutely critical game playing at home against a team like Michigan State. They've really got to find a way to leverage that energy and just turn it all the way up. If they're going to have a chance. And, where the league stands right now, where Indiana falls within it, I think I hadn't checked as of yesterday. Last I looked, they were in a 5-way tie for 4th right now. There's not a whole lot of spread in the middle or the top of the league for that matter. So just an absolutely monstrous opportunity to take one from the league's best and kind of, continue some momentum. That was certainly a big win. It was kind of it wasn't without its worries. This is a team that continues to find a way to forget who it is. I don't say this lightly. My family's battled this on several occasions, but the men kind of have some symptoms of dementia. They tend to forget who they are, how they got where they are in a particular game. We saw it in Lincoln where, after falling behind a little bit, they found a way to really exert themselves inside. It opened up the 3-point shooting, and they were just, baskets were falling all over the floor. And then in the second, they kind of got a little bit too content, too satisfied with just being a jump shooting team. And if there's one thing we've seen all season long, this team ain't built like that, man. They are not, even on their best night, they are not the type of team that can ignore the post, that can just play a one-dimensional spot-up game. It's just not who they are. And, fortunately, they were able to keep Nebraska at arm's length as they were able to pull tight. I believe the lead ballooned up to 19 before it got a little too close for comfort there at the end. But I guess at the end of the day, none of that matters in the record book. Box score shows a W on the road. Now they got to find a way to keep that going and see if they can steal one from the Big Ten's best when they come visit the Hall here this Thursday.
Yeah, man, that was a nice win on the road over Nebraska, but we know that Nebraska is one of the bottom edge teams of the conference. So games against Michigan State, then Maryland, which comes in after that, important because Indiana has shown that they can actually end up in the top half of this conference without question.
No, I think it's certainly well within reach for them. It's well within the realm of possibilities. I was looking at the Pomeroy projections. We got 13 games remaining left. Indiana is projected to be within 2 possessions on every single game but one from here on out. Only the Ohio State game is projected to be decided by more than 2 possessions. So just a razor-thin margin of error for all teams involved going forward. Really speaks volumes to the parity in the league and just how competitive it's become. It absolutely puts a premium on those home games, with the Big Ten being as difficult as it is on the road. And I couldn't help but mention after that Nebraska game, for as good as this league is and for as tough as the gyms are, you absolutely cannot underestimate the bias of Big Ten referees in a home gym either. So it's certainly a steep hill when you're out on the road away from home. You got to take the ones you can at home and try to steal them when you can on the road. So we'll see if they can keep it going. We'll see. More than anything, I want to see them keep the balance they were able to find by making concerted effort to get the ball inside, not just off the pass, but attacking off the dribble, because as we saw last week, it certainly opens a whole lot more options up for that offense, not allowing teams to just pack it inside on them.
Yeah, we talked about wintertime, man, Chronic. And they had baseball camp yesterday.
Yeah, man, I mean, we are within a month of the season opening. It's wild that it's already here, but that's just how quickly the schedule accelerates once you get past the winter break. Huge season on tap for Jeff Mercer's crew here. Huge season on tap for Shonda Stanton's softball team as well. So I'm looking forward to both of them. But at the end of the day, too, it's still hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that that's just right around the corner already. I mean, I'm still putting away my football gear from this season. So I guess there's worse problems to have, though.
Yeah, life just keeps getting faster and faster, man.
Tell me about it, brother.
Well, brother, I appreciate you as always. I hope it's a great week for you and the family.
Appreciate it. We got I think we got another Mind Your Banners on tap here this week. I know it's a kind of a short week in between our last talk, but trying to keep that coming, trying to balance it. Like you said, we're back in full swing of the spring semester now. So stuff's starting to settle out a little bit, but I'm a man who loves his routines, loves the schedule. So happy to be back in it. Happy to see the Hoosiers win, and let's see if we can keep it going and roll through these cold weather days, man.
Sounds like a plan to me. Chronic Hoosier, can't thank you enough, brother. Appreciate you for joining us each week.
Hey, thanks for having me. Remember, guys, wear your hat. Don't be selfish.
There you go. There's Chronic Hoosier for you. And I got my hat on, so I'm not going to be selfish today, but appreciate the Chronic joining us as always. Man, we've got so much more coming up before we finish up the show here on this Tuesday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. When we come back, more Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
This is former IU basketball player Derek Elson. Follow the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, it's very, very hard to win in this league on the road, and I think every team's going to experience their ups and downs. We're no different. I'm proud of our guys, though. We had a hard loss at Rutgers on Wednesday. Had to go right back and do it again. But to be able to come out with one tonight was really, really important for us moving forward, because I know moving forward what we have, coming up, on Thursday and then each one after that. So, but every team's got to play everybody, so it's, the Big Ten's going to be one of the more jumbled leagues, I'm sure, until somebody can start to get a few of these and hold serve at home. So it's a great league. Fred's obviously going to bring a lot to the table when it comes to the league. And this place is going to.
There's Archie talking about his squad as they prepare to take on Michigan State on Thursday. As Indiana plays, I've heard both ways. I don't know if it's the toughest, second toughest. Doesn't really matter because it's pretty tough either way. But the toughest remaining schedule in the country, Indiana. So, man, it's going to be like that for everybody in the Big Ten. I mean, you say that about Indiana. What's going to be no different for Illinois, for Purdue, for all those teams that are playing all these same teams?
It is in playing the same teams, but the difference that I've been talking to you about with it, and I've gone through the other schedules. It's not the same way. Like Indiana has these 2-game
because of how it's set up.
Swings, yeah, the way it's set up. And I know. Look, you all play the same teams. You all play whatever. I get all of that. What you don't all play is you don't all have the same teams that you don't play twice.
Right.
And Indiana doesn't have to go to Michigan State and Northwestern and Iowa. I mean, not having to go to Michigan State and Iowa, those are probably two of the toughest teams on their home court in all of the Big Ten. So that's a big deal. Not having Illinois and Michigan come into Assembly Hall. I mean, that's 2 decent games to not have coming in there. Illinois has probably 2 of the best road wins of anybody so far in the Big Ten. And so, Michigan is a team, if they get hot shooting the ball, they literally are as talented as anyone. So that part of it, the teams Indiana doesn't play twice. I mean, I don't know that I would say they have the most difficult schedule. What I think makes it the most difficult is those 2-game stretches. I mean, they just completed one, and now they have 3 more 2-game road trips, consecutive games in a row on the road. And so they're going to have weeks. I know you mentioned it earlier, and it's, I think it's so true. I don't know if Indiana doesn't win these 2 games this week. I don't know that their schedule allows them to be ranked at any point in time throughout the year.
Not to get off the subject, but Jack Nicklaus turns 80 today.
That's a big happy birthday from the golf world.
Big happy birthday to the
Man,
to
I
the
would
bear.
not have guessed he was that old.
I'm telling you, man, the Golden Bear. But I agree with you. It's what are you expecting Thursday? Indiana takes on a Michigan State team that last year they got swept. So there's no way that they don't remember that, obviously.
Sure.
But it's a different team, and that doesn't do anything for this year's game. I know that. A lot of people put all that factor in. But it is a part. It is in the back of their mind. They know they got swept by Indiana last year, because it was kind of embarrassing. It had to be.
Well, sure. And here's something to factor into that, and just keep in mind. Yeah, it's a different team, different mindset, different all of that when you're talking about Michigan State. But a year ago, Michigan State went to Mackey Arena, and they were down at halftime, 37-19. I mean, they got waxed and got blown out in the game. That's a Purdue team with Carson Edwards, and that's one of the better scoring teams in all the country last year for Purdue. And then this year, they traveled to Mackey Arena again. You're right, different teams, but I would say Purdue is on the lesser end of having those two different teams.
Yep.
And the score's 37-20 at halftime, and again, another blowout. And so even though, yes, I'm sure they had something to prove when they went in that game as well.
Yep.
But when your defense takes over the game, on your home court, and you make it very difficult for a team to score, Michigan State, this is kind of stupid to say, because I think we could say this about almost most teams across the country, is they struggle to score the basketball. And when you go on the road, it magnifies that struggle. And, if Indiana can get Michigan State in a situation where they are having to work for their baskets, they're not getting easy baskets. Against Northwestern, Indiana gave up way too many easy baskets. I mean, there was 5 wide open layups. That's 10 points. That's a big deal. That's a lot of points. I know it only sounds like 5 baskets, but that's a lot of points in a Big Ten game. And if Indiana can eliminate that against Michigan State, I mean, what your question is, what do I expect? I do expect Indiana to win. I expect them to, play better because play better on offense because it's a home game. And I think defensively they can make it tough enough on Michigan State to score that they'll win the game.
Does Rob play more minutes in this game because of who he should be guarding?
Of Cassius Winston and guarding Cassius Winston. I mean, Rob is one of the better defenders in the league, one-on-one against a guy. I've always said this, that a good offensive player will beat a good defensive player, in the long run throughout a game. And I believe that's the case. I think Cassius Winston is just one of the most creative guys with the basketball that college basketball has seen in a long time, and we'll see again for a long time. So I'm hyper impressed with him, and I think he does a great job getting everybody involved. I don't know that Indiana will stick to saying, Rob, he's your man, go guard him. I think they'll try to throw some different guys at him. I'll be honest with you. I would live with them making Cassius Winston beat him from the 3-point line, not 17 feet. Cassius Winston can beat you from 17 feet. I'm not sold on the fact he can beat you from the 3-point line. He can make it, but I'm not sure he can beat you from it. So I would just love to keep him out of the lane. Whoever they put on him, whether it's got to be a double team or showing that help all the time with him, just keeping him out of the lane is the biggest factor. And I think Rob will start out on him, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Al and a bunch of other people rotate on him as well.
I'm assuming that Tom Izzo is he's a pretty smart coach, so he's going to be focusing or having a focus on Trace Jackson Davis and taking him away from this Indiana offense, I would think. And if that were to be successful, this is one of those games where you need someone like, say, Justin Smith to step up, if that is the case. But I don't know how it's going to work out. But I'm surely they're going to be focusing on Trace Jackson Davis, obviously.
Yeah, and they will. And, here's the difficulty for Tom Izzo. Here's something that you'll want to watch as an IU fan to see how the game starts, is who does Xavier Tillman guard? If you're Tom Izzo, do you have him guard Joey Brunk or do you have him guard Trace Jackson Davis? Whichever one he doesn't guard is going to have an advantage over who they play against. And I think that's the weak link for Michigan State when you're looking at a lineup standpoint. They're good at the point guard. They're good at the off guard. They're pretty good at that wingman. Gabe Brown is stepped up and played a lot better for them, and he can knock down some shots. I think he and Justin Smith will be a good matchup to watch. that 4-man is kind of the guy who is, Xavier Tillman. If I were them, I would put Xavier Tillman on Trace Jackson Davis. But Joey Brunk, Indiana's thrown the ball to Joey Brunk in the post, and he's been pretty successful with his post moves as well. So that'll be the matchup to watch, is whoever Xavier Tillman doesn't guard, whoever that guy is, whether it's Trace Jackson Davis or Joey Brunk, that guy should have a decent night against Michigan State, and that'll be the matchup to watch.
Absolutely. Kind of bounced around a little bit today, seeing some fun little things. Here's something you might remember from a blast from the past. It's another birthday today. I'm not sure if you'll be able to tell because I haven't heard this audio since 1994. This is an audio clip from a post-game coaches press conference from 1994. Nothing to do with Indiana. This is a random thing out there. It's another birthday that I happen to see. I wanted to throw out.
I just got my ass blasted for giving them hell down in West Virginia. And here you get a hell of a job right here today. Good job. 3 class guys. And you pick them out here and single them out. You can't get that guys. Shut up, guys.
So who is it, John Chaney or John Calipari?
That's John Chaney when he was threatening to kill John Calipari.
Which one's birthday is it?
It's John it's John Chaney's. I wouldn't be celebrating Calipari's birthday. But I don't know. I might with that clip. That's one of the greatest all-time "are you kidding me" moments where a coach, for those of you that don't recall, John Chaney was the coach at Temple, and Calipari was at UMass. And so after a particular one of those tough Eastern kind of East Coast games, Chaney went in and he threatened to kill him.
Yeah.
He says it all. I didn't go forth because I didn't know the
language gets bad. You had to stop it there. The language gets bad.
Actually, we don't have to. I forgot. We're not under any. That's what he said. I'll kill you. And he started moving towards him. This is in a freaking coach's post-game press conference. It still amazes me to this day. Some of those great videos you look back at.
I'll tell you something that was interesting about John Chaney. We played against Temple. Coach Knight had a big respect for John Chaney, and we played against them in the NCAA tournament and beat them, ending their season. And I'll never forget, John Chaney came out and actually got on our bus and talked about how important Bob Knight and Indiana basketball had been to his development as a coach and how much he respected us as a program and all that. This is after we just beat them. And trust me, coaches don't generally have that much sentimental liking for a team right after they just ended their season. And it was just a respectful thing that he did, and I'll never forget it. And I've just always thought highly of him. Anybody that wants to kick John Calipari's ass, I'm all for it. He's good he's good in my book.
Yeah, that's a classic, man. And those were some great battles. That was funny. But that's back in the day of the Bad Boys and all that stuff. Think about the NBA back in the 90s. Yeah. That was a rough time in basketball, man.
Yeah, it was a different deal back then, for sure.
Yeah.
Now we have flop warnings. Now we give away flop warnings and things like that. We got LeBron James getting knocked down by a 180-pound guy, and he weighs 360 pounds. Yeah. Now we worry about who flops the most.
Have you seen? I don't know if we can tell. Have you noticed a difference in less? I don't know that they're doing any less than they ever have.
Yeah, I've noticed it. It was getting to the point of ridiculous where
is that an ice pack on your head?
Yeah, I got a bad headache. Sorry
to interrupt. No, I don't. I feel so. I'm like going, good God, that's gonna be rough.
You're seeing so many guys throw their heads back when they get, and it'll get corrected. It's just like you remember last year when they were making a point of emphasis on the hook and hold, where they were getting guys to stop doing that. Yep. And it, for the most part, they cleaned it up in a year's period of time. And I think the same thing, it was getting ridiculous on the head throwbacks of guys getting bumped and all that. And I'll tell you what, I give officials and, the committee and all that a hard time about a lot of the stuff they do. I'm telling you, they got this one right, because this was going to really ruin a lot of basketball stuff. And to clean this up, and it's real easy to clean it up. You start giving away the warning and then the technicals the way that it is right now, and I think in a year's period of time, it'll be just like that hook and hold. They'll have it cleaned up.
Yeah, it's just like watching World Cup soccer. It ruins, completely ruins, because soccer is a beautiful sport. I've learned to really appreciate soccer and understand, because once you understand it, I promise you, if you're an athlete or whatever, you will have
you learn to respect.
You're damn right. Because let me tell you, oh my God, the stuff that they go through. Yes, but in that situation, it is horrible, and they get away with it because they don't have the threat of the penalty for doing that, and I think they should. And it ruins to me. It ruins it
totally. Like I'll tell you this. Like, I'm with you. When you watch it, I lived in Europe for 2 years, and you know, at our basketball games in the city I lived in France, we would have 2,500 people at a game. And the very next day for the soccer game, they would have 110,000 people show up. I mean, soccer was it. And so I learned to appreciate it, and I enjoyed watching it and going to the games and seeing it. But I will tell you, I literally cannot watch it. As a sports person, I can watch just about anything. But when you get these guys that dive on the ground and throw themselves on the ground over, you know, getting their shin just clipped a little bit, trust me, there are sometimes they get hurt and it sucks and it's awful. And that part of it I get. But they take it away from themselves. They take away my sympathy themselves because of all the diving on the ground. And I'm telling you, they could clean it up in a heartbeat. All they'd have to do is make it, if these guys go down with an injury, they got to sit out for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. They would clean that up in 1 week. Everybody would have to stop doing it. But until they make an effort to clean it up, they never will. And until they do that, I'll never watch it.
I hear you. Got the Super Bowl coming up, man. Looking forward to that. DeLon McCullough, who is a former running backs coach at Indiana, is an assistant coach for the Chiefs. So he's going to the Super Bowl. I saw his son, Dylan McCullough II, put a Twitter post out. Congrats to his dad making the Super Bowl. His dad reposted and said, "Appreciate you, son. You coming too!" Exclamation point. Yeah, that would be a nice retweet to get right there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Then, of course, you've got Tevin Coleman for the 49ers that making the Super Bowl as well. Unfortunately for Tevin, I don't think he's going to be able to play, man. I think that injury he took is
They
probably
said yesterday there's a strong likelihood he was going to play.
Really? I didn't hear that. That's awesome. Yeah. That's incredible then. Because
49ers came out, they said a dislocated shoulder, and they
were popped that right back
expecting him to play is what the tweet said.
Well, especially after he saw what's his name?
Yeah,
go for 200 yards, man.
No kidding.
He's like, man, I got to get back out there. I'm gonna lose my job. Man, what a great show this was today.
A lot of fun.
It was a blast. Love it.
For not being a game day, it was a good one,
dude. Oh, and then we didn't talk much about the UFC because it's not really stuff that we talk about. But that's just one of the fun things. The lineup on that entire card to me sucked. I don't know how many. I know you probably didn't get to see as many fights as you were driving, but
I watched just as many as I would have watched if I was sitting home the whole time. I wanted to see the Conor McGregor one, and that was it. The rest of them are garbage.
Normally they're not, but they were. That was a bad undercard. And you know the funny thing is, the women's fights are usually better than the men's. They're more active. Man, they're active.
Yeah, but, I'm just not a UFC fan.
Yeah, I just watched the big fights as well, but yeah, that was kind of funny, man. That was a big disappointment.
Yep, it was 40 seconds. I mean, disappointment depending on how you're looking at it, but from Conor McGregor's standpoint, I mean, truly, they were talking about, that was kind of the goofy part. They were talking about when could he fight again, and I'm like, he could fight again tomorrow.
Yeah, he didn't do a damn thing.
He didn't take a single hit. He could fight again tomorrow.
Yeah, he didn't do a thing. Not a single hit, not one blow.
Not
Cowboy,
one blow, and all
did
he
not
did was throw 3 shoulder hitches or whatever you want to call them. I don't even know what you call it, and kick a guy in the face, hit him twice, and it's over. I mean, his knuckles probably needed a couple of hours worth of ice, and that's about it.
Yeah,
I'll lend you my ice pack. I'll lend you my ice pack right here.
Yeah,
he's good to go tomorrow.
Put an ice pack on his shoulder. Indiana basketball back in action on Thursday. Don't forget, after the game with Todd Leary, coming to you live from Yogi's immediately after the ball game ends. That tip is for 8:30, so that means approximately 10:30 will be underway, which, that sounds late, but it doesn't matter to our fans. We got some great fans, man. They are on it. That game we had that started after 11, whoo, they lit it up.
Yeah, some
And-
of our best shows have been those late night ones.
Well, let me tell you, Indiana comes up with a win. It doesn't matter what time it is. It's going to be, because that's a big, big game. So looking forward to that. We're expecting a lot of people on the show with us. These shows have continued to just grow. We cannot thank you guys enough. We really appreciate you guys participating and making it that much more fun for us, man. That makes it so much fun when the fans are interacting with us, Todd.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, we're nerds, so we're going to be talking about it anyway. But I love hearing.
I thought you were just going to stop after you said we were nerds.
I very easily could have, but I love hearing other people's opinions and perspectives, and I like to. I always feel like I have a little bit of I watch the game a little bit differently than just the average fan, and I credit/blame Coach Knight for that. But I love to hear. It's funny how educated Indiana fans are, and that's not just a statement that people make all the time. I mean, it's factual. I mean, Indiana fans look at the game differently. They watch it differently than the average person does from anywhere else in the country. And I give Coach Knight an enormous amount of credit for that, because he trained people on what to look for and what to watch, and it makes it fun.
Also on Thursday, don't miss the program. You should never miss it anyway. But former Hoosier and current Michigan State assistant Dane Fife who's going to be on with us. Are you going to give him? It's too late now. That Duke game that you called that was so funny. You got Todd Leary standing on the damn area where you sit and broadcast.
Scorer's table.
You got Dane Fife fouling a guy on a 3-point shot. Man, there was all kind of craziness going on. But
yeah, I if there would have been a camera following me during that whole sequence of events that took place, when Dane fouled that guy, I think I fell on the floor. I think I actually got out of my chair and got on my knees on the ground, like holding my head. Like, how in the world did that just happen? And then I reminded myself that it was Jason Williams, and he was not a great free throw shooter anyway. So it made it less of a big deal. But, man, I remember looking up and Fish looking down at me like, what in the world? Get off the ground. What are you doing? Like he was talking to his child.
We're talking about that Thursday with Dane.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. I'm sure, he knows. Everybody, look. When people talk to me about stuff about my playing career at IU, what do they always bring up? 3-pointers against Duke. When people talk to Dane Fife about his career at Indiana, what do they talk about? That game against Duke, guaranteed fact. That'll be the number one topic that he's always talked about with IU.
We will certainly see. Well, man, it has been another great, fun show, as it is just every day. It's getting funner and funner. We continue that tomorrow. We'll see who we can scare up for you. Don't be surprised if we get another special guest. Of course, Matt Weaver will be with us a little bit as well. We'll talk a little bit of football, but we got a lot of basketball coming up. Thursday, Dane Fife will be with us. Friday, Clark Kellogg. Have I announced that yet? Clark Kellogg's
You have
on
not
Friday.
announced that. I'm shocked you haven't announced that yet.
I forgot, man. We got so much. It's hard to keep up with. Clark Kellogg's on the show
But
Friday.
Clark's the best.
He is awesome. We'll be talking about Indiana taking on Maryland when Clark's on. And, of course, we'll talk about the results of the Michigan State game, whatever they end up being. But Dane Fife on Thursday, Clark Kellogg coming up on Friday. Don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow yet. We'll come up with something big, man. We're making it happen.
It's happening, no doubt.
It's happening. Well, man, that's going to wrap it up for us today. We cannot thank you guys enough. We really appreciate you. We'll be back here tomorrow from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. For Todd Leary, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.